Our hero wakes up with depressing thoughts, but all is not bad as he's still alive. He has fallen deep down into the Great Orcus Labyrinth, and the surroundings are unknown and eerie. He must make his way back up into the upper levels ASAP. It's a huge level unlike any he had seen before, and he comes across a white bunny. He found it weird as he thought that the monsters would be tougher in the deeper levels. At that time, two wolf-like monsters appear and attack the poor little rabbit. But the bunny uses Ultra Instinct level moves and quickly dispatches the two wolves like something out of Dragon Ball. Foolishly, our hero makes his presence known to the deadly bunny that now turns his attention towards him. It teleports in front of him and attacks, but misses because a new threat appears. A giant white bear swings at the fleeing bunny and sends sharp energy cuts through the air to decapitate the jumping bunny. His hopping days are over. The giant bear then jumps at the dead bunny and starts greedily eating it. Our hero did not graduate from the school of sneaking away quietly, so he interrupts the bear's meal with his loud panting. But he did not realize that the bear only needed a helping hand. So with its energy cuts, he takes it, his hand that is. Luckily, our hero is not completely useless, or this story would be rather short. With his remaining hand, he uses his magic transmute over and over again to escape from the hungry beast, and then passes out from blood loss. Drops of water falling on him wake him up, and it's from a holy crystal, basically a miracle crystallization of mana over millennia that will give our hero the boost he needs to get out of his predicament. But we are getting ahead of ourselves as we must know what exactly happened 10 days before his tragic fate. We learn from a book that the drops of water falling on him from the holy crystal was actually holy water that can heal any injury and dispel any curse. We finally learn our hero's name is Hajime Nagumo, and his only skills are transmute and language comprehension. He's eagerly studying to be of some help to his teammates. However, he has his doubts as he's quite useless in a fight. We know that's true. A large group entered the Great Orcus Labyrinth 7 days ago, and some are already struggling with the monsters in the upper levels. But it seems there is some strong muscle in the group, as a paladin, Amanogawa saves Hajime from certain death by a rodent. But it does not matter if he's weak, as the power of being liked by all the female characters is strong in this one, as 2 pretty girls come to check up on him. The group comes up on a Glanz crystal which lures in our heroes with its beauty, and a reckless, forbidden touch makes the crystal glow red and teleport the party onto a bridge. A large group of badly 3D rendered monsters spawn. It's a trap. They're hopeless, as even the strongest defenses fall in the presence of a behemoth. But Hajime's transmute is able to hold the monster in place for enough time for the others to escape. They form a line and blast a volley at the monster. As Hajime runs, one blast flies directly towards him. How could that happen? The plot thickens. Back in his hole of despair, Hajime tries to think of any reason to live, and his will to live is fueled by hatred for anyone who stands in his way home. Everyone who gets in the way is his enemy. His sanity breaks and an edgelord is about to be born. He gulps down the holy water and hunts for the monsters, eating their stinky raw flesh. But it causes him to mutate from the inside, and he counteracts it with drinking the holy water. And a son of Marie Antoinette, and Kaneki Ken is born. He also inadvertently discovered the fastest way to get buffed. No diets or exercise. It's the secret that the gym trainers don't want you to know. Eating monster meat made him level up like crazy, and even gave him new abilities. We're then introduced to an amazing world of geology. Rocks, rocks, and more rocks. Did you think this is just another fantasy with swords and shields and bows? Wrong. We got guns. After some grinding, Hajime went to face the bear monster and explained to it he's all right. The two duke it out, and a flash grenade distracts the monster long enough to get its smelly hand blown off. Hajime takes a bite out of it to taunt the monster and stuns it with his electric magic, then puts a bullet between its pretty eyes. Hajime explores deeper into the Great Orcus Labyrinth and faces many horrific monsters on its way down. Meanwhile, back in the kingdom, the surviving group reports to their king about the trap they encountered. They're also sworn to a vow of secrecy about Hajime's fall. as he's one of the chosen heroes by God, as are the rest of them. One of the girls feels regretful about not being able to help his comrade. She even had to stop Kaori from trying to go after him. In her shame, she goes to train in the middle of the night. We learn that the heroes are summoned by a god named Ihit that reigns over the people of Tortoise. He summons them to help humankind in their bloody war against demonkind and their monsters. But they're not great heroes. They're merely students, classmates brought into this world against their will. Hiyama inadvertently interrupts Shizuku's training as he mutters to himself like a scared little child. It's more than obvious he did something very bad, the naughty boy. She starts to put two and two together, the clever girl, but in the end she has too much hope for her classmate. She then returns to Kaori's side and is happy she finally woke up. Kaori asks about Hajime and is hopeful that they saved him in the end. But that is not how it went. She gets up and tries to go back to get him as she cares for him very much. Hajime stands in front of a massive door but is stumped on how to open them, despite his loitering in the library all the time. Trying to force his way through with transmute, he awakens the door's guardians, a blue and red Cyclops. He immediately and with no mercy shoots the red one in the eye and takes it out. But the blue one is a harder nut to crack, as it has strong magic defense. It blocks a lot of bullets, but in the end it also perishes by being shot in the eye. Back at the kingdom, Kaori is hopeful with the rising sun that they will meet Hajime again. They cannot be sure he's gone until they check for themselves. In the Cyclops' bodies, Nagumi discovers mana stones that serve as the keys to opening the door. He inserts the stones and a flash of violet energy unlocks them. A canvas of golden stars surrounds him as green vines retract from the pillars. A small blonde girl materializes in a cube. He quickly turns the other cheek as the girl begs him to help her. An outstanding logic, one that we do not see often enough, is then revealed to us. Why would he help someone obviously sealed away down there on purpose? But as she pleads, he finally gives in after hearing she was betrayed. He's ready to listen and wants to know more. The girl then explains she's one of a long line of vampires, and extremely powerful ones too. She helped her people greatly, but in the end, the ones in charge feared her power and locked her up, as people usually do with the things that they can't kill or control. Lock them up and throw away the key. But her being a vampire means that she can heal extremely quickly and can manipulate mana without a magic circle. She doesn't even need to clap her hands together. That's amazing. She's quite OP. Hajime touches the cube and pours all his power out in order to break out the damsel in distress. He manages to break her out, and we are blessed by the holy pigtails of censorship. The girl asks his name, and after learning it, she repeats it and wants Hajime to name her. He names her Yue. But their bonding moment is interrupted by flying spikes, and Hajime uses his strong body to shield Yue. Because that was smart, all right. Protect the immortal who has Deadpool healing factor, yes. But for just a small price of a tumble down the abyss, you can get the holy water and get your own healing factor as well. It was a giant rock scorpion hanging from the ceiling that attacked them, making sure they didn't escape. The two team up to take it out. Bullets don't seem to hurt it, but neither can it surprise Hajime again with its spike attack. Yue climbs down from Hajime and bites his shoulder, sucking some of that juicy blood. A red aura appears around her, and when she has her fill, she uses a mighty spell, Azure Blaze. A giant blue fireball crushes the scorpion to the ground and burns it heavily. The two then make a plan, and Hajime draws its attention. As it's distracted, Yue descends a smaller azure blaze on the monster. Hajime manages to jump on it and shoots the same spot, finally breaking through the hard outer shell. The two share a meal, and Hajime learns that the Great Orcus Labyrinth was built by one of the Mavericks, people of great power that in ages past went against the gods. In their defeat, they built and hid at the bottom of the labyrinths. So Yue suggested that the maverick of this labyrinth is their only way back to the surface. She's then interested in why he's even down here, how he can use magic without a circle and even eat monsters without dying. He tells her his story of betrayal, and she cries at the thought of it. Luckily for his one shitty classmate, He does not want revenge anymore. He just wants to get out and become stronger. To make her feel better, he even invites her back to his own world, and she's very glad. As the remaining heroes are preparing for another training in the labyrinth, our two heroes are being chased by velociraptors infected by parasitic flowers. They must find the one that controls the flowers and take it out. As they're searching for the monster, Yue happily takes sips from Hajime's shoulder. They soon discover a cave of flowers, and as they investigate it, small green particles come floating their way. Hajime tries to transmute a shelter, but it's too late, as Yue is already infected and starts attacking him. As he's hit by some of the particles, he's stunned, and a sexy plant monster appears and hides behind Yue using her tiny body as a meat shield. But it doesn't matter how many times he gets hit because he gained resistance from eating all those monsters. Yue tells him to shoot, and he gladly accepts. He fires through the flower on Yue's head and hits the plant monster, ending her planty life in a blaze of glory. They then eat. He eats the monster meat, and Yue gets ready to indulge herself in his tasty blood as he tastes ripe for the picking. A spiral staircase appears in the middle of the cave, and the two descend to the 100th level. After some searching around, they finally find a great door. They hit the jackpot, and they ready themselves to enter through it. The two enter the bottom of the labyrinth, the Maverick's lair. A long hall with floating crystal pillars that look like amethyst unveils before them. They hold hands and bravely march forward, but the final boss stops them in their tracks. In front of them looms a gargantuan hydra with not 3, not 5, but 6 colorful heads. They quickly take out 3 heads, but the middle one, the silver one, heals them completely. They aim to take it out, but it's too well balanced as the rest of the heads defend it. A black head puts Yue in a hallucination that shows her deepest fears. Luckily, Hajime saves her in time. He then transmutes a safe space, and she tells him her fear of him leaving her. To calm her down, he shares a passionate kiss with her and promises her to kill that hydra and go back home safe and sound together. With newfound strength, Yue unleashes the elements on the hydra, and Hajime advances. The blackhead tries its cheap trick again, but the lingering kiss helps Yue to not fall under its influence. It tries the same trick on Hajime, but a broken mind cannot be any more broken. He then pulls out his new gun and eradicates half of the heads, leaving only 3. Yue then finishes them off. Just as they thought they were victorious, a new head sprang up and attacked Yue with a green energy beam. He intercepted it in order to protect Yue, but it was too much even for him. Yue drags his body away under a purple rain of missiles. She makes him drink a lot of holy water, but it doesn't seem to be working. She bravely picks up his gun and charges forward, but her efforts are not enough as the shots seem ineffective. For dramatic effect, the head shoots its laser of death behind Yue to menacingly trail it towards her, leaving Hajime just enough time to save her. As he saw that he would lose his beloved partner, something stirred in him and made him much faster and stronger than before. He gives her instructions, and then he sets up. He places grenades on the ceiling and detonates them to pin the hydra in place. Yue casts Azure Blaze and deals the finishing blow. They both collapse from exhaustion. On the other side, the teacher finally takes a stand for her students, and the high priest promises her that the ones that do not wish to fight won't have to. The teacher is a great asset as her class is farming, which means she's extremely important in cultivating humankind's farming efforts. In the labyrinth, Kori stares into the abyss in hopes of reaching Hajime as soon as possible. In the Maverick's lair, Hajime wakes up like any man would love to, with a girl by his side. Yue then catches him up on what happened, how the doors behind the hydra opened, and how she got him onto the bed and gave more holy water. She even undressed him to clean him up. Yue also finds some clothes and explains that at nighttime the stones of the cavern turn into night. They walk across the park-like cavern until they find a nice mansion. It was like some kind of royalty used to live here. They explore room after room, at least the ones that are not sealed off. They find a great room with a skeleton in fancy clothes sitting on a throne-like chair. Hajime steps inside the magic circle drawn on the floor, and it activates. Images flash through his mind, and the spirit form of the maverick manifests. He introduces himself as Oscar Orcus, the creator of the labyrinth. But it was just a recording, unable to answer any questions. He just wanted to leave a message why some people like himself would fight against the world like they did. On the other side, the party of young heroes and the royal guards reached the 65th floor, the floor of Behemoth's lair, and where they lost Hajime. They reach the bridge where they were ambushed and see it's now repaired. Even the Behemoth spawns again. But the group is determined to not let the past repeat itself. They bravely face the Behemoth and its mob of skeletons. With great teamwork, they manage to cut off one of its horns. It pushes them back, but with Kaori's support, everyone is healed and buffed at the same time. But the Behemoth then targets the back lines and almost manages to break through the defense barrier, but with Kaori's help, her friends manage to push it back and finally defeat it. As it falls, so does the mob of skeletons. Everyone rejoices in their victory over the terrible beast, except for Kaori, who is probably still worried about Hajime. We return to Hajime and Yue and the recording message of the labyrinth's creator, Oscar Orcus. He will give Hajime his power to use as he likes, but asks him not to use it for evil. He does not give any further explanation, so no exposition here. A terrible pain surges through Hajime as the so-told truth is imprinted onto his mind. Yue then stands at his side as Hajime explains his newly acquired magic. Creation magic. The day turns into night, and they decide to take care of the body using it to fertilize the land. They then retreat back to the mansion where they find the blueprints for the magic circle that is connected to the surface. To use it, they must use Oscar's ring, which Hajime looted before they buried him. They learn they will learn other ancient magic if they clear other labyrinths as well. They might even find a magic or some way that will bring them back home. Using Oscar's ring, they manage to get entrance to other sealed rooms of the mansion. Hajime suggests they stay in the Maverick's lair for a while. Even though he's eager to return to the surface, there is simply too much knowledge to learn here. He also wishes to use this time to prepare materials and equipment as he has the right tools here. Yue, of course, doesn't mind as long as she's with him. In the night, Hajime takes a bath, and as expected, Yue sneaks up behind him and joins him. He suddenly gets extremely flustered, but Yue doesn't mind. She basically flashes him as she declares all of her is his. Instead of a training montage, we are graced with creation and preparation montage as he whips up himself a new arm, some vehicles from his home world, a ruby eye to replace the one he lost, a freaking Gatling gun, and a red instead of green BMFG. And we know the famous song, "If you like it, then you should have put a ring on it." And he did just that, the dog. After 2 months, they're finally ready in stylish, edgy new clothes and equipment. He warns her about the surface, how the church might go after them, and they might even face godly beings, but promises her that together they will be unstoppable. They're going to defeat anyone and anything that stands in their way and surpass the entire world together. A scantily dressed bunny girl is being chased by a two-headed T-Rex when Hajime and Yue blast through the magic circle, knocking her on the ground out and scaring away the monster. But it seemed that she was waiting for exactly them. Hajime and Yue are thrilled to have made it back to the surface, and just as they were to embrace, the bunny girl came sprinting towards them, running the moment. Since she seems annoying, the two try to get away from her as she begs them to help her save her family. Hajime sees no logic in helping some bunny girl he never met before, and when she tries seducing him and pulls on his heartstrings, he shoots her down immediately. The dinosaur monster appears again, and Hajime does not take too kindly to it roaring at him. With 2 precise shots to the head, he takes it down easily. The bunny girl, or Shay, is impressed by his power and begs him to save her family again. Even after pointing his gun at her, she does not relent. He finally decides to hear her out. Kinda like when men don't know when to shut up, Shay also did not know to shut up about her curvy figure, and so she incurred the wrath of Yue. Shay then explains she has a unique power of future sight, meaning she can see into possible futures. It seems she's telling the truth, as she knew where the two would appear, and that they were heading for the great tree in the Haltsina Sea of Trees. a forest always surrounded by thick fog that blinds the senses and makes everyone get lost. To Hajime's surprise, Yue suggested taking her with them. They then find her family hiding from some flying monsters. Hajime immediately makes her work for her trouble and throws her in the air to serve as bait so he can shoot at the flying monsters like clay pigeons. Release! The rabbit people are then escorted through many harsh encounters with protection from Hajime and Yue. And Shay is determined to join the two on their journey, but they reject her without hesitation. The next morning, all the rabbit people beseech Hajime to train them so they can stand and fight for themselves. They're done being weak. But that is easier said than done as they're defeated by the easiest game and cry at the sight of hunted animals. But flowers and tiny bugs and everything cute and living brings them joy and happiness. Hajime is having none of that and is determined to transform them into mean killing machines. Surprisingly, Shay is showing fast improvement with her sparring with Yue, as she's even able to land a small scratch on her cheek. Of course, she's not willing to admit it. Hajime arrives and wants an update on Shay's training. He's even impressed. Shay is still pushing her wish to join the two as she wants to be by Hajime's side and even confesses her feelings to him. At that moment, a bloodthirsty group of rabbit people turned Yakuza came with their spoils of the hunt. Now they were definitely ready to fight and protect themselves. The group arrives at the great tree, and they find a monolith with a magic circle. It partially activates when Hajime inserts Oscar's ring, but to fully activate it, they must face and conquer the 4 other labyrinths. Hajime lets his posse go as they must fly on their own now. With the impending fear that she will now also be left behind, Shay remembers her mother's words of how one day she will find people just like her outside the sea of trees, and they will go on great adventures. Luckily for her, Yue is an honorable vampire and honors her promise that she can come with them. Hajime does not object, but he's not taking any responsibility for what might happen to her. Shaya feels like her feelings have won and the sun shines somewhat brighter through the dense fog. The newly formed trio are now in Raizen Gorge, searching for the entrance to the labyrinth. Either by her powers of future seeing or by sheer dumb luck, Shay manages to find the entrance. A playful voice teases them as they proceed through the great Raizen labyrinth like it's some sort of a game. They encounter some classic booby traps like rolling boulders, rotating saws, and swinging over a giant pit, followed by some Home Alone antics. But in the end, all they did was make a full circle. They reach a room full of suits of armor. Everyone knows where this is going, so they send the rabbit in to deal with them having her back covered. With teamwork, they make it through the long hall and break through the doors at the end of it, only to arrive in an open void with floating platforms on one of which the beloved Milady Raizen, creator of the Great Raizen Labyrinth, stands in a large suit of armor. But Milady Raizen is long dead by Oscar's notes, so something else is afoot here. Milady Raizen asks about Hajime's intentions on why he seeks ancient magic, but he only wants to go home and doesn't give a shit about this world. Even though she promised she will answer the questions, she declines and the fight commences. The trio manages to damage the suit, but it's not enough. A rain of platforms descends on them, and Yue and Shay grab onto Hajime, who leaps from platform to dodge the attacks. Milady Raizen believes they're done for as they get enveloped in a cloud of smoke, but Hajime is already behind her. With Yue's help, he manages to bring the suit of armor down on its back, and Yue freezes it in place. He then uses a pile driver sort of weapon to pierce its armor, but it's not enough, so Shay delivers the finishing blow and pierces the stake through the core of the suit. The suit powers down, and Hajime praises Shay. Yue even pats her head. Milady Raizen uses the last bit of the core's energy to have one last small chat or a warning with Hajime. She tells him he will definitely face the bastards they faced many years ago, because he is who he is, and that he will definitely become the God Killer. The trio reaches the Maverick's chambers only to be greeted by Milady Raizen, but they're not having any of her antics, and after such a heartfelt speech, they unleash the bunny girl on her. After her punishment, she gives them her ring and the ability of gravitic magic. But Hajime is not satisfied, and shakes the little body down for anything else of value. But she flushes them down the drain in a lake in the forest. But Shay almost drowns, and Hajime performs CPR on her, which triggers Yue very much. But when Shay is back to her consciousness, she abuses the moment for some sexy tongue-on-tongue massage and clings onto Hajime like a spider monkey. The trio, drenched, booked a room in an inn, and the two girls bicker about the room arrangements. Of course, like before, and like any man, Shay doesn't know when to shut her pipe hole down and causes everyone in the room to lose their appetite. The news of a trio clearing the Grand Risen Labyrinth has reached the ears of many, even the head of the Furin Adventurers Guild. He wishes to employ them for his services. Even though they're not willing to take on his request or even hear him out first, he manages to at least hear him out before they leave. The request is a rescue mission of one Will Kudeta, the third son of Count Kudeta, as his party had gone missing in the northern mountains. But Hajime refuses as he's got his own thing going. Besides the obvious harem, of course. However, the head of the guild does not give up so easily. For the reward of finding the Count's son, he's willing to give his full support if he ever gets into trouble with the guild. Hajime starts considering it, but has two conditions. He demands status plates for them, and that if they ever have a need for the head of the guild, he'll do everything they say. The man agrees without hesitation, and they have themselves a deal. Right now, the trio is on their way to the Lake of Ur, where the people have started to grow rice, the staple of his homeland's diet. It's in fact under the guidance of the hero's teacher that the lands have developed into true rice fields. However, she worries about one of her students being gone for a week, but the others encourage her that he will be back before they know it. Then the owner greets them and explains it's their last meal as they run out of spices. It would seem a group of monsters and bandits have appeared in the northern mountains and have attacked traders and a party of high-ranked adventurers. But he tells them not to worry as a strong trio is about to come to help them out, a courtesy of the head of the guild. In that moment, the notorious trio arrives. As they bicker as usual, the teacher and the classmates seem to find his name and voice familiar. Well, of course, how many fantasy world people would have a Japanese name? The teacher rushes over to their table with tears in her eyes. In a comical fashion, he tries to avoid her, but in the end, there is no denying who he's. Hajime then proceeds to try to order something to eat, but the teacher is not having any of it. The more questions she asks, the more horrible answers she receives from the girls. But hey, it's not too timing if it's a harem. Asking about his injuries and his changes, he simply responds that he worked too hard. But boy, you're not Saitama to have that as an excuse. A blonde knight gets angry at Hajime and slams his fist on the table while they're eating some delicious curry. How rude. The knight tells him he should learn how to talk to his superiors. Oh, the irony. And then remarks about Shay being a filthy beastman. How crude. Yes, there must always be at least one douchey knight type that wants to purge anything different than he. Yue rightfully calls him a small man. Must be overcompensating for something, As he tries to draw his sword in retaliation, Hajime shoots at his shoulder, knocking him to the ground. His former classmates are in awe of how much he has changed and how popular he has become. After finishing his meal, Hajime pronounces that he has no interest in getting involved with them again, telling them to not get in his way. Shay is still taken aback, though, as she didn't think that humans would find her ears disgusting. Yue compliments her ears, calling them fluffy and cute, and she immediately perks up with happiness. Even Hajime likes them as Yue spills the beans on him, petting them softly while she slept. Later on in the night, Hajime breaks into his teacher's room, not to sexercise, but to explain the situation so she won't worry so much. He reveals that in ages past the war ravaged the lands, and that a group of people wanted to stop it for they saw the truth of it. They were nothing but pawns in God's control. The war and the fighting was just one big game to God, so they decided to fight him. They were called the Liberators, but God declared them the enemy of the church, so infighting began, and they were labeled Mavericks and taken out one by one. The remaining ones scattered across the world, built their labyrinths, and hid themselves away. all in the hopes that one day some champion who would clear their trials would be able to stop this mad god's games once and for all. But of course he doesn't care what happens to this world. He just wants to go home, and labyrinths are the key. The teacher brings up Kaori, and Hajime explains to her that she should warn her and other classmates to watch their backs. Not from the monsters, but from their so-called friends. He figured that everyone thinks he fell down by accident, that a magic spell lost control and hit him instead. But we all know that is not true. After learning one of the students tried to kill another student, the teacher is distraught. However, the next day, she and the rest of his classmates are determined to go with him and help him in his search quest. He gives up on trying to turn them back and summons a big truck so they all can travel together. The group arrives at the Northern Trail, and Hajime deploys what he calls human locating automatons, or Ornis. They're able to fly around and scan the area, and with the peering stone inside of them, Hajime is able to see through them with his ruby eye. Almost immediately, they find the remains of a large battle and a crater left by a huge four-legged monster. They search deeper into the mountains, and by sundown they reach a waterfall cliff where Hajime senses someone's presence. Someone is hiding behind the waterfall. Yue uses her magic to split the waterfall in half, and behind it they find a small entrance to a cave. Inside, they find Will Kudeta, their rescue target. They treat his wounds, and he tells them what happened. The monsters just kept on coming, and they kept on coming, driving them into a corner with a black dragon nailing the last nail in their coffin. But before he could say more, he started feeling sorry for himself, but Hajime snapped him out. One should be happy and feel good about surviving. There is nothing wrong with that. They leave the secret cave, and a red moon shines upon them, and the wind carries the black dragon to them. Hajime faces the dragon's black breath with a large riot shield, and Yue supports him with heavenly calamity, bringing the flying dragon down. Shay strikes at it with her hammer, but is not successful in knocking it out. The dragon is too strong, and the attacks simply bounce off of it. Yue is placed in charge of protecting everyone, while Hajime alone faces the monster. The dragon keeps going after Will, and Hajime is sort of pissed off that he's being ignored. But he will soon change that. He single-handedly takes care of it now that he doesn't have to worry about the others. Yeah, basically the side characters hold him back. As the dragon is finally knocked out, Hajime takes a stake and goes for the one unprotected spot, its booty. When he inserts it without foreplay, the dragon suddenly speaks in a girl's voice. It's a dragonborn. After some torture/pleasure, she's willing to tell them everything they want to know. She reveals that she had a spell cast on her and could not resist. She's willing to accept punishment, but later, as the one that cast a spell on her, must be stopped before that, as he's trying to gather an army of monsters. The Dragonborn urges Hajime to take out the rod. It's not that she doesn't like it, but in her human form she can't take it all. In her human form, Tio Claris, a masochist, has been added to the harem. We're up to 3, so we're making good headway. Through his Ornis, Hajime sees the army of 60,000 monsters heading for the town, but there is no sight of the robed man. 2 days pass by swiftly, and the massive army arrives. But Hajime and the others are well prepared for the assault. With a rousing speech and the demonstration of his power, he rallies the citizens of Ur. The 4 now demonstrate their destructive powers by attacking the monster army with bullets, rockets, flames, and magic. After draining their ranged weapons, Hajime and Shay rush in for a close-quarters combat. Soon they corner and knock out the robed man and the monster army, or what's left of it, disperse. The robed man ended up being Shimizu, the missing student. Deep in the mountains, he made a deal with a demon to kill the goddess of plenty. Their teacher, Aiko, he manages to take her hostage with a monster poison-coated needle and demands Hajime's weapons. But our edgelord is having none of that and shots at him, fatally wounding him. But the needle pricked Aiko's neck, so Hajime is forced to shove some holy water down her throat with his tongue. Even though Shimizu tried to end her, she still asks Hajime to save him, but he doesn't believe his pathetic begging for life and ends his struggle. But he did it for his teacher's sake, so in the end, he's kind of a good guy. Finally, the head of the guild and his friend Will are reunited, and Hajime asks him for another status plate. Back in their rooms, as Hajime peers out of the window at some shady-looking characters, Tio remembers her father's dying words. It appears her father was also one fighting god of this world and his dark machinations. He tells her to live on, and the memory ends in a flash of fire. Shay and Hajime are out and about in the city on basically a date, as he promised her one if she worked really hard. They enter an aquarium and meet a talking human-faced fish. After they talk for a while, the two realize that he got swept up by an underground current that they caused by clearing the Grand Risen Labyrinth. They help him out and get him out into the open water. There, he tells them about a little merfolk girl that was also captured at the same time as him, but got sold off, and tells them of a ring of slavery in the city and to be careful. The two then share some thoughts about Tio, the newest member of the harem. Their happy troop. Hajime suddenly stops as he senses something underground in the sewers. They go in and save a little merfolk girl, probably the one the manfish talked about. Her name is Mew, and she got separated from her mother when a gang of slavers took her. He leaves her at the guards, but the slavers attack the place immediately and take her again. They're the enemy now. The two reunite with Tio and Yue, and together they storm the black market auction and their lair. Hajime jumps in to rescue Miyu and takes out the gang leader. Yue then takes out their hideouts with lightning simultaneously. Now every girl suddenly wants a baby. How could they resist when they see the cute little Miyu call out Hajime as her papa? The hero group is still exploring the Great Orcus Labyrinth and encounters a sexy red-headed demon offering them a chance to join her. Of course, they refuse her offers, so she sends her many monsters to attack them. A fierce battle commences, but they stand no chance. So Yagashi sends Endo, an assassin, to sneak away and ask the help of Captain Meld. But luckily for him, he meets Hajime and his group at the guild and asks for their help instead. The heroes fight a losing battle, and even Captain Meld is defeated before their eyes. That is the story Endo shares with Hajime, and with encouragement from Miyu and the others, he decides to come save them in the nick of time. Everyone is shocked to see Hajime alive and well, and coming to rescue them with a great company of girls by his side. The sexy demon gloats while he taunts her and easily sees where all the monsters are hidden and deals with them in an instant. Without breaking a sweat, he takes care of every single monster there is. He even deflects one of the monster's attacks back at the demon to humiliate her further. His former classmates barely believe Endo, and the slimy one breaks down completely as he's sure Hajime is back to seek revenge against him. Yue, Shay, and Tio successfully protect the others, while Hajime finally fights the demon one-on-one. But her high-level magic doesn't even faze him. To show her how serious he's about wanting her to answer his question, he goes about it mafia style. Take out the legs. So why is a demon down here? He figures it must be that demonkind cleared a labyrinth and gained an ancient magic. Stupidly, she even reveals that it wasn't her that cleared the labyrinth. Now Hajime knows everything he wants and decides to end her, even as she threatens him that her lover will come to slay him. Even though his former friends protested, he did what he had to. It's kill or be killed in this world. They finally reach the surface again, and it is there that Kaori confesses her feelings for Hajime and that she wants to join them. However, he cannot respond the same anymore. But Yue accepts her into the party as she looks forward to the challenge of who loves Hajime more. Childhood friend added to the harem, party. And here ends the first season with our party of heroes and perverts driving towards new adventures and labyrinths and battles. So in the end, return to Hajime's homeworld